everybody. Hello. What's up, everybody? Hot Takes. It is August the 2nd, 2023. Excited to be here, as always. And this one's going to be a little different than what we normally do. This is actually going to be the first time since the inception of Hot Takes that we go down this route. But I said something about it on the show. I said, you know what? I should invite Dale Jackson on just to see if he'll actually accept. I didn't think he was going to accept. I figured he had more important things to do. But believe it or not, Dale Jackson has decided to join Over the Line for the first time in his life. And I know he's excited. Dale Jackson, what's up?
Hey, I had a lot better things to do than this, but I still came here for you.
Now, yesterday, we were actually going to do it yesterday, and you said something about you open a house for your kid's school or something. I'm like, you don't go do that stuff, do you?
Absolutely.
Do you? I just hear
I'm a great dad.
interactions.
World's best dad. Kids love me.
I hear the interactions with you and your kid and how you just kind of, I mean, even the pictures on Facebook, you know, where you're like throwing him off a trampoline or something. I could see you being like, nah, I'm not going to that.
Every kid needs that kind of physical activity and physical play so they know that you're the alpha male. Occasionally you got to hurt them and teach them what's up, and that's where they learn their limits, and it's good for them.
And do you plan on Grant becoming a professional wrestler?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't let him do it.
No.
And I don't think my wife will let him play football.
Really?
So
not going to do
he'll
football?
have to play like soccer or some other sport like that.
Oof, man.
Cross country.
Soccer's got a little commie vibe to it. I don't know if I'd let him go that route.
Yeah, he's going to have to do something because, otherwise he's going to be a big guy. So we gotta get him out there exercising and doing stuff. So
you don't want him to
part of this.
You don't want him to end up like me and having to do man-do at 37 years old just to get back on track. That's not the life he needs. Hey, but I got several things to talk to you about. But first of all, I need to give a shout out to my boys over at Wild Hair Jerky, as these guys are the best beef jerky on the planet. Y'all have been liking the page and following them. They're getting ready to be open. Here's what I want you to do real quick. Y'all listen, pay attention. I want you to go over to the Facebook page. You're looking at it right now. Wild Hair Jerky. Like the page. That's the first thing you need to do. Second thing you need to do is send them a message. Say, hey now. And once you tell them, hey now, guess what? They're going to hook you up with a free Wild Hair Jerky over-the-line tumbler. This is the best beef jerky on the planet. And Dale Jackson, I know that you've never had Wild Hair Jerky beef jerky. I don't even know if you eat beef jerky. But this stuff is the best of the best, bar none.
I've actually had Wild Hair beef jerky before. You left some in the Cumulus Cafe, and I ate it all. That's where it went. So if you take it up there, it's going to get eaten. If it's not on camera where they can see what you're taking, I'm taking everything that's in that break room.
It's a rare occasion that I would actually leave. And if you see right here, I keep a stash at all times. I've got ghost pepper. I've got, what do we got here? Montreal spice, top-notch stuff. Roasted garlic and herb. That's everybody's favorite. And I keep it hidden here in the studio so nobody else can get their hands on it. So how has the new lineup gone for you? You're doing less work for the same money?
Yeah, it works fine for me. Tim Melton's a quitter. I'm kind of glad to see him go. If his heart wasn't in it, it's time for Tim Melton to go. And 1 hour is perfectly fine. It does make my life a little easier. Most people don't know this, but I'm also the program director of 2 radio stations in Huntsville, and that takes a lot of my time as well. So when they said, hey, 1 hour, and I was like, same money? They said, yeah. I said, okay.
What's it like? I've always wondered, and I, you don't want to just outright ask, hey, does your job suck? But does being a program director suck? Because I see program directors, and they look, with the exception of Valerie Viney, who always looks beautiful, program directors look stressed out all the time. Do they not?
Yeah, it all depends. Valerie Viney has a unique situation because she has so many local air talents. And that right there is a stressful situation because you got all the egos and the babies, and I mean, you have at least 3 meltdowns a week, so she's got to deal with those. But yes, the more talent you have, the more issues you have. And I have 4 radio talents over 2 radio stations, and then sports is really hard on the radio. It's not hard to do sports radio or anything like that. You just find the right people as always. But the real issue is scheduling sports. People don't understand how much it is just a pain to go through the scheduling of sports. On a talk station, the shows are the same time every single day. But the Rocket City Trash Pandas have a game today. They had a game at 4:15. Well, their normal start time is 6:30. So they got to change everything. And they got to tell people that they won't be there. They got to have the people to come in and run the game and all these things. And so, yeah, that's the hard part about it. The weekends are absolutely terrible in dealing with the sports station as well, because there's college football, there's pro football, there's a basketball game. If you're affiliated with the college station, it's terrible. But other than that, yeah, it's not that bad. Being a program director is fun in the sense that you get to have your fingers in everything if you want to. You don't have to. And you can influence the direction of the whole station.
Well, and this is going to sound ridiculous because I think most people assume that I would know the answer to these questions, but does WVNN, do y'all do sports on that channel, or are you speaking of a different channel there at your cluster?
We have a different station up here called The Ump, and it's a sports talk station on 7:30 a.m. and 103.9 FM. It runs some Jocks programming from Birmingham, and then we have some local shows that we run from the middays on, and that's where the hassle comes in. And I say hassle, it's just work you have to do.
Right.
But it's not that bad.
It's like a hassle that I love. So
Yes.
2 stations in your cluster. Okay, so I'm learning stuff already. So you got 2 stations that you're over, right?
I am personally over 2, but there are 5 total stations in the cluster. But yeah, so there's a couple of there's a country station, there's a top 40 station, and then there's an urban AC station.
I see you as an urban station program director. I really get that vibe from you.
Yeah, I'm sure I'd get a lot of live reads over there. That'd be a lot of fun. Now, Jackson Dale does a couple of remotes and whatnot on the country station every now and then.
Do you wear a cowboy hat?
Opportunities over there
when you do that?
I think he fits in pretty good there.
You don't wear a cowboy hat when you go remote at the country station?
No, I wear the exact same stuff. I go to a remote in
you wear that
Newstalk
T-shirt.
station.
That exact T-shirt right there.
This is casual wear. The remote stuff is jeans, vest, tie, that kind of stuff, or as people refer to it as youth pastor get up.
Yes, Dale Jackson, the youth pastor. So I didn't really have a plan as far as us doing this podcast together, but now I'm super intrigued, and I feel like this is the interrogation of Dale Jackson, because I can learn so much about our Huntsville sister station. So you oversee 2 different stations. On WVNN, you've got 4 people that you're over?
No, WVN is myself and Yaffee from the Yaffee program. You hear him occasionally on Talk 995. He fills in for Leland quite often. He's on after me from 9 to 11. And then there's the sports station where we have 2 different shows, Christopher Reed and the Daily Conversation, or the Daily Controversy, excuse me. And then we have the Sports Church with Christian Horn.
The Sports Church, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. I actually know Christopher Reeve. I've worked with him for a little bit, but let's be honest. In all reality, Yaffee's probably not going to see this podcast. What is it like being Yaffee's boss? 100% honest.
He is the world's best employee.
Is he really?
There's no question about it. No question. I have never seen him get upset about. I've seen him get upset about one thing. And that's because Tim Melton screwed him in a poker game. That's the only thing.
And that was off the clock.
I've never seen him get upset about.
That wasn't even at work. That was off the clock.
Correct.
So Yaffee's who you oversee, but you see 4 people total. As a boss, I've never been really a boss of any job I've ever had.
What a shocker. That surprises the hell out of me.
I know. I just never quite made it that far before we had to mutually part ways at every place I've ever worked. Have you ever dealt with any like serious drama where it's like just an incredible dumpster fire that you as a program director had to put out and you couldn't believe that was happening at your station?
Absolutely. Happens a lot over the course of your time running stations. Keep in mind, I've been there 17 years.
Jeez.
I've been running these stations for 17 years. So yeah, I've overseen a lot of dumpster fires. Stuff happens. I mean, it happens. We have live local talk radio. But I will tell you this: in the little bit of time I've been overseeing the sports station, that's the bigger hassle.
Do you have drama over at the sports station or just a scheduling deal?
Oh, it's just a scheduling duties. Andrew, I'm going to surprise you here, but people generally do what I say.
Really, it's just that's why I'm so fascinated by this conversation because I feel like not only me, but I feel like the audience is going to be seeing a different side of Del Jackson that not only have we not seen, but a lot of us didn't know that this Del Jackson existed. I mean, it's kind of a big deal. Del Jackson, the boss, Del Jackson, the responsible guy. And here's what's prompted me to go down this route is
Sure.
it was Monday or Tuesday. I get in the studio and I get ready for the show and I take a peek at the text messages. And this is last few minutes of your show. And it was Monday, as a matter of fact. So the first day of the new show. And text messages were saying things like, wow, Del Jackson, you actually seem like you seem normal. I kind of like this. I like Del Jackson. I was like, I've never seen these texts before, and it really caught me off guard. I didn't know what to think.
Well, I'll tell you something about our audience. Sometimes it's just about agreeing with them. It's not about anything else. I will never pretend to agree with them on anything.
Right.
But sometimes they're going to stumble into getting things right. And when they stumble into getting things right, then we'll probably be on the same page more often. And all too often, that is the case, that it's all about the person's opinion as opposed to how they're saying it or whether they're entertaining or whether they're interesting. With the people who are giving you constant feedback, which is good, with the people who are doing that, they are getting their belief sometimes sent back to them. There's not that many people that listen to things that they hate. I mean, you constantly hear things like, oh, I'm not going to watch this show or that show because they believe this or that. And I think that's kind of been exacerbated on talk radio by the rise of Donald Trump, where sort of like you are seen as a traitor if you are not 100% on board with his message of the day because it changes, whatever his exact cause is at that time, and his particular spin on that. And if you deviate from that, people tend to get rather upset. Some people shy away from the differences they have. I prefer to lean into them and run into the brick wall over and over and over again.
So what you're saying here is that it's completely coincidental that the audience is warming up to you this week, and it's highly likely that next week they will be on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Maybe. It's possible. I mean, it's very possible. I mean, yeah, you can't live life that way. I mean, it really. I always point stuff out to people, and I kind of hit on it here a second ago. If you're reacting to the negative, understand that's fine to use it as like a tool, and that's fine. You can take the people who are negative and respond to them and explain why you disagree with them. If it's bothering you, and you're like responding to them privately, there's no reason to do that because the simple fact is nobody ever picks up the phone and calls a restaurant and says, hey, that dinner I had yesterday was great. Nobody does that. They call up and they say, that sucked. It was awful. It's the worst thing I've ever had and all this other stuff. And people are very slow to compliment people. And on the other hand, I like to compliment people. Like I'll pull waitresses and managers aside and I'll say to them, I'll say, hey, that guy was really good. He did a great job, and I really appreciate that. More people need to do that because that's why you're reacting the way you are to positive comments about me, because it's a lot easier to absorb those negatives and take those in. I mean, they just, in the reality, it's easier. People are going to send stuff when they're upset or when they're emotionally invested. And when someone says, "Oh, I agree with that guy," they're not. No one's going to send a message that says, "Hey, I agree with you."
Well, the first name that comes to mind when we talk about that is Alan from Nectar, and I think it's well documented on the show how Alan from Nectar feels about you and felt about Tim. Um, and the residual of that comes on to my show, not in the form of phone calls, but text messages. I get emails and everything else. Uh, but this guy, no matter what they think about you, this is a guy that probably listens to your show more than he listens to my show. Like there
Oh
is
no,
almost
he tells us he never listens.
no. Listen, my friend, he is listening every single
Every
day.
day, every second.
And he spends the whole hour, the whole 2 hours, giving you all the business via the text line, and it's over the top. But to this theory of you agree, you disagree, or whatever, you've got something going on that's got even the biggest of haters locked in, and they can't turn away.
Well, guys like Allen are interesting because he's so pathetic. And the pathetic side of it is he is just upset that he supports Donald Trump undyingly, and not everyone does.
Yeah, it revolves
Voting
around
for him
Trump. Yeah,
3 times, not enough. That's not enough. You are disloyal to Donald Trump, and Allen is not going to allow it. And there is a good number of listeners and Trump supporters who are like that. And I never understood that mentality, because what you're doing here is basically saying, hey, you're with me 85% of the time, and you disagree with me 15% of the time, so I want 0% of your cooperation.
yeah.
It is just a dumb thing that you would not do in any other part of your life.
Well,
You're not going to agree with all your friends 100% of the time,
yeah, and
but they're still your friends.
you see a lot of that amplified on Twitter between like Trump and DeSantis people, and the fact that they're divided on the one person, it starts to get real nasty between a lot of people. And I don't know. I feel like maybe Allen is a little bit different than some of those people in the sense of Allen will give you the business if you watch college football over the weekend or if you support Nick Saban, because Nick Saban did a BLM march and everything else. So I think he's an exception to this whole scenario. But again, you get on Twitter, you get on social media in the conservative realms, and you can see the people that are supposed to be on the same team fighting with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's that way on the left, too. With the Young Turks, Anna Sarkeesian has fallen into this as well when she's saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't call me a birthing person. And people on the left are like, oh, we knew it all along. You're a Republican plant. It's like, guys, she's dyed-in-the-wool liberal. I mean, in every possible way. She's just saying, maybe you shouldn't call women birthing persons and expect people to take you seriously. It's sort of the same thing here. I always enjoy interacting with people like Allen, but I'm not going to do it for free. That's the thing. I'm not going to interact with Allen for free. Allen's not going to get a response from me on the text line. I'm at work. I don't expect the guy at the McDonald's to come to my house and serve me a hamburger. That's not going to happen. He's going to do it at his job where he's getting paid for it. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to respond to him. If I'm going to respond to him, I will respond to him via the airwaves, and it will be done in public. So I very rarely respond to emails. I will not respond to text messages on the station apps at all, except to say, hey, you want a prize? Here's how you pick it up or something like that. I'm just not going to go back and forth. If Allen wants an in-time interaction with me, don't send me an email at 11 p.m. Or don't text me. Call me.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe you could set aside a weekly segment where Allen calls in and you guys just talk it out and talk through your differences.
No, thanks. He can call in like everyone else, and if I decide to take his call, so be it. But here's the thing about guys like Allen. I mean, and I'll just put this as bluntly as I possibly can. That guy is not very smart. Okay? It's obvious in every interaction I've ever seen or heard of him on the radio or in text message or email or anything like this. He's just not a very smart guy. So it is probably in his best interest for his own sanity is to keep it to text messages and yelling into the cornfield because it doesn't make any sense for him to further embarrass himself in getting into some sort of verbal altercation with me.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's enough about Alan. Let's talk about you. I know you have had a lengthy radio career. How long did you say you've been doing this?
17 years.
17
Actually,
years.
more than that, actually, but 17 years where I'm at now.
I wasn't even able to buy alcohol 17 years ago.
But did you?
Well, yeah, I'd have people buy it for me. I mean, I had buddies that were in bands, and I'd go to their shows, and they'd buy me beer on the backside. But what is one of the why? And I know some. Well, I say some. I know at least one or two of your infamous stories, like the one station that we worked at together, or not together, but we both worked for the same company at different times. You getting fired from there. Any other like crazy stories where you just did something outlandish and got in trouble?
I think the biggest thing I ever did that got me in trouble was when I went out and I did a joke on an election day. It was a special election in North Alabama. And I put out a joke. I read on the air a fake press release that I had made up. And it said basically because of all the attention on this special election that there was a coin flip at City Hall that morning, and Democrats vote on Wednesday, Republicans vote on Tuesday. It's an old joke. It's whatever. It was just a complete joke. But I did come in. I'd say, "Oh, a little bit of a breaking news here," and I'd read the fake press release I had written that say all that, and I would just go on with my business. That's the joke, ha ha ha. And well, what happened was it was a pretty close election, and the people who lost wanted to make a big deal about it. So the Secretary of State was notified, and I called him up and said, "Oh yeah, that was me. I did that, but I didn't hand." They said people were handing it out at the polls and stuff, and it was funny because they're like, "Oh, people are handing these out at the polls." And what I had done is I wrote a fake press release and I put it on my website. But at the time, anything you put like in quotes was in a gray shaded box. So these people were so stupid that when they were handing out the press releases, or where they said they got it handed to them out of the polls, it was and by the way, they were handed these out the polls. Just keep that in mind. They went to the polls and were handed a press release. It had the gray shaded box it was a white piece of paper with a gray shaded box.
Wait. So you made a joke on the air and then decided, hey, I'm just going to take it one step further and I'm going to create a fake press release and I'm going to put it on the website. How did
there was blogs were a thing back then.
Okay.
That was when blogs were a big thing, and you put your show notes up every day and they'd be right there. And I just put it in there as a joke. I mean, just keep in mind, on this, it said the office of, what was it, the Secretary of Electoral Elections for the state of Alabama. Completely made up thing.
So just made up, yeah.
Merrick Barber, who was at the time was an asexual name for a running back for the Dallas Cowboys. That's why I used it. And I wrote a fake press release. And they made a big deal about it. And I had a member of law enforcement come to my house and investigate me. I was called before a grand jury on
you should listen. You should have sympathy for Donald Trump in this whole situation because you've got the Donald Trump treatment before over an election.
Yeah, but I didn't do it.
No, here's what I need to know. So you create, you make the joke, you make the template on the website. How does it get in the hands of people who are handing them out at polling locations?
It wasn't. It never actually got handed out at polling places. They were lying.
Oh.
They showed that to the media and said, "Oh, look what I got at the polling place," and it was clearly printed off my page. And they were just saying it because they were mad that they were losing.
Okay, so
this was right before Republican. This was 2009, before the state of Alabama went from supermajority Democrat to supermajority Republican. This was the beginning of that wave.
So you started that. You're responsible for Alabama being a red state because of those press releases. So, Law, who was the race? Or are you scared to say? I say not scared, but
it was State Senator Paul Sanford, who's not in office anymore, and Laura Hall, who's still a state representative. She lost that race and went back to the House. But I mean, just Mike Hubbard, who I believe is out of jail now.
Yeah.
Mike Hubbard, the Speaker of the House, in his book, he calls me an idiot because of
Nice.
that. Because that was the beginning of all of this in the state of Alabama, and he's like, "Oh, and Dale Jackson tarnished it with his radio nonsense." And the thing that's funny about it is what they tried to get me with was so weak and dumb. Forgery, because I put the state seal on it on the internet, that's not it. Misappropriation of the state seal for the same reason. Voter fraud and voter intimidation. 2 felonies, 2 misdemeanors, 33 years in jail. And Troy King, the Attorney General of the state of Alabama at the time, he and I had a run-in, surprise, not too long before that, where he came up to Madison County because I busted a firefighter in sort of I did a Dale Jackson To Catch a Predator thing.
Oh my
And I-
goodness.
And I busted a firefighter, a volunteer firefighter. So the AG came up and was like, I'm going to go in here and deal with this. They went to the guy and said, "You're going to resign. You didn't do anything illegal because the guy's not really a 14-year-old girl or whatever, but you're going to resign and we're going to do all this stuff." So they didn't want to make it public or anything like that. And I honored those wishes. When I was interviewing the Attorney General about this, and he was applauding me for doing this and showing this and proving that this issue is still a thing. And I think the whole hook was Facebook was like, "We've made our website safer because if you're in a sex offender registry, you can't be on our site." And I'm like, I can pretend to be a 13-year-old girl on your site tomorrow,
Right.
and somebody will try to have sex with me. Okay, that's just how this works. So stop pretending it's safe. That's not really that smart to do. Anyway. So I'm interviewing him, and at the end of the interview, there was all this nonsense going on surrounding this Attorney General, where they were putting pictures in the paper because he had something about enforcing a ban on sex toys sales on Sunday or something in the state of Alabama. I can't remember what it was. Well, some person in the state who was a rabble rouser was having people send him like inflatable goats and sex toys and stuff like that. And they were spreading rumors about him. And one of the rumors was that he had left his wife for a man. And so I had him here. I thought this was all ridiculous, just nonsense. They were slandering this guy because they didn't like the job he was doing and all this other stuff. So I said, at the end of the interview, I said, "Oh, yeah, let me ask you this." I said, this is a rumor going around. AL.com or Birmingham News at the time, they don't have the guts to just say this. They're going to hint around this. So I'm just going to ask you, did you leave your wife for a man? Now, before we go any further, I'll just ask this way. Andrew, have you recently left your wife for a man?
I have not, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Pretty simple question. His response is, "I don't respond to rumors." Which is a bad
call.
response.
That's a bad call.
It's a bad response. So I say, wait a second. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing. I mean, did you leave your wife to be with a man?
And at that point, you're like, "Oh, I got something here."
Yeah, exactly. And he said, "Dale, as the Attorney General of the state of Alabama, I have a lot of things to do, and one of those things is to not respond to rumors."
Oh my
Which
god!
again is a terrible response, but I loved it. So he got very mad about that, and this was payback for that. And fast forward through the story, 2 felonies, 2 misdemeanors, etc. When I go to court, my attorney says, "Look, they're going after you for this, right? And if this goes anywhere, this is going to become a big deal because he's using his office to target somebody he had to run it with." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe, but I would also not want to go to jail, and I also don't want to lose my job and all this other stuff." So eventually, we get to the day of the grand jury, and I'm sitting there in the room. He doesn't even show up. Obviously, he's the Attorney General, so he sends one of his guys up here, and they sit us down and they offer us a deal. And the deal is plead guilty to one of these crimes, and you can we'll ask for a suspended sentence. You won't even have to do probation or anything like that. And in my mind, I'm like, that seems like a pretty good deal. And my lawyer's like, yeah, hold on one second. It tells them to leave. He's like, absolutely not. He's like, they've got absolutely nothing here. They're not going to do anything. He said, this is a sign that they're not going to do anything. So they come back in and they ask the question. They say, so are you going to, which of these crimes would you like to plead to? And I said, no deal. So we'll take our chances. And the guy's pretty shocked. He goes, you don't have to listen to this guy. You get to make the decision. And I was like, I'm going to listen to my attorney here and do what he says. He gets up and leaves. And I remember this to this day. Can we cuss on this podcast?
Of course.
Okay. So the investigator is sitting there as well because he's going to testify before this grand jury too. And the attorney general's guy gets up and leaves the room. The investigator reaches across the desk, grabs both sides of the desk, like reaches across and leans over and goes, "They don't got fucking anything at all." And I was like, "Oh my god," And he said they're gonna take the case. And I said, okay, all right. So we go in there and they take the case. On the grand jury, there was a bunch of people. One woman asked me, I heard that and said, were you trying to embarrass people? And I was like, I mean, if they fell for it, that's pretty embarrassing. But that really wasn't the intent. I mean, that was never the intent. And another guy says, I was listening that day. I love your show. And I'm like, what is going on here? This is completely insane that we're having this conversation. So, yeah, grand juries are interesting, but I'm glad I got to experience one from the inside. So
I got to say, man, that's pretty wild. That's a pretty good story. I always envisioned myself, getting in a situation like that. And maybe I hadn't been in the business long enough, but maybe it's coming.
They will fire you.
What happened?
In 2023, they will fire you.
Well, what happened with your job amongst all of that?
6 months before that happened, because it drug out for that long, I was suspended for a week.
Ooh,
that's what happened. And then my boss from corporate called me up and was like, "You're out of control. You're out of control." And I'm like, "Well, then how come we haven't talked in a year and a half?"
Right. Like you don't even know who I am. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, cuz.
So.
Well, I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do this again, and because I want some more of these stories, and maybe it'll be more constructed, and we can. Do you have anything to say about your now long lost co-host Tim Melton now that he's gone? You seem pretty upset about it. Okay, never mind. Yeah,
I'm upset about it. I'm mad. I'm very mad about it. I really am. I'll be completely honest. I liked him a lot personally. Tim is my friend. And he is a very nice, very sensitive guy who cares too much. Like that, I've said that on the air. I've said that to him. Said to everyone. But he is very good at what he does.
Right.
And I thought we worked very well together. I would tell him, I was like, hey, this show we're doing here is better than the show I do in Huntsville. There's no question about it. I think this show is better.
Yeah, I've heard you say that.
I really enjoy it. And I told him, I said, when he told me he was leaving, I was like, are you kidding me? And I went around the building. I tried. I was like, I'm out there. I'm like,
were you legit? Were you legit pissed when he told you?
No, of course not. No.
Oh, I'd have been pissed.
I'm not pissed at him, but I did try to talk to people around the building. Be like, how can we try to convince this guy to stay here? Like, what can we do? To do this. I mean, he didn't leave on bad terms or because of anything in particular. He's got an opportunity to do something he wants to do, and I think that's cool, and I'm happy for him. But I'm selfish as well. I want what I want.
Yeah, I almost felt like I was robbed as well, because I thought, there was always talks of like we gotta expand the line. I never knew what form that was gonna come in. You're kind of like, the shows are set. We're not gonna take away from anybody, but you never know. Things happen, and I thought, just daydreaming. Okay, if the show gets expanded one day, and say Tim decides just to go strictly news, I said I could use Tim in my show, bring him in once a day. I was thinking, again, it was daydreaming with no real logical way of how it would happen, but all those dreams went away when Tim went away, and I'm like, okay, yeah. I can't have him on this show now. And people have asked me, I can't tell you how many times, what is Tim doing next, and I legitimately don't know. He didn't tell me, and I didn't pry for it. but it's got to be
I can't
better.
obviously say anything about it. But, the thing is, and the reason 1 hour is what we're doing is because, look, I got all these other responsibilities. It's easy for me to come in and be the color guy, like, for 2 hours or whatever, and do that. But this as well as anyone else. I mean, I'll be honest. You're too honest with how hard you work and how it stresses you out and stuff like that. I mean, we've talked about that off the air too.
Right.
But I mean, it's a lot of work to drive the train for 2 hours after doing it for 3 hours before, and then having all these other responsibilities. So I mean, there's just no way to continue doing it that way. So I mean, this is the best of both worlds. It gives you more time and more opportunity, and that's great.
Yeah, you definitely got a lot on your plate. I don't know how you do it because what I do stresses me out. Like I said, we'll do this again soon, so we'll stay in touch, and then we can actually come on, and maybe we'll just do a show where we just talk bad about people or something like that. How does that sound?
That's fine.
Is that good?
Let's start with Richard Dixon.
Yes, I like that idea. We'll do that. All right, Dale Jackson, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you, man. There is Dale Jackson, the Dale Jackson News and Views, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Talk 99.5. He's also on WVNN in the mornings. Also, again, quick reminder, don't forget about my boys at Wild Hair Jerky. Get yourself a free tumbler. It's going to have the over-the-line logo on it and everything. Just go like the page, send them a message, say hey now, tell them love you long time, appreciate you supporting the line with Andrew McLean, because if it weren't for Wild Hair Jerky and my boys over at Vapor Forge, we wouldn't be doing this thing. So that's it for me. We'll be back. I don't think we've got a show tomorrow because I've got things to do, but worst case scenario, we'll be back next week on Tuesday. So until next time, see you, Cubs!